The International Times, Volume 1, Issue number 49, from 1969. Love Under Will, by Kenneth Grant. The formula of sexual magic used in Aleister Crowley's cult, particularly the OTO, may be compared with certain tantric practices of India, Mongolia, and China. The thesis of Tantra, especially the Yama Marga, or left-hand rites involving women, is based upon the balanced interplay of active and passive polarities in the human organism. The process requires an initial inhibition of the outgoing tendencies of the mind, which constitute the thinking principle, or image-making faculty. When this is stilled, the mind-illuminating light of consciousness shines unobstructedly. Normally, the light is obscured by a veil of ignorance, which is mistaken for the world and its endless flux of images. This illusion of a world has to be dissolved before the light, which forms and informs it, can shine without hindrance. One way of achieving this is by magically directed sexual congress. Crowley calls it the way of love under will. It destroys the objective universe by dissolving the sense of separateness, thus enabling the self to realize its identity with pure consciousness, without objective adjuncts. This is the essence of mysticism. It is also the essence of magic, and the means of influencing the external universe at will. Mysticism accumulates in the opening of the eye of Shiva. It destroys the universe in the sense that it ceases to exist as an objective phenomenon. There remain no forms and no ideas to disturb the creme bliss of self-experience. All agitation ceases. This is the passive form of attainment. The active form is magic, and by it the light is projected into any desired mold. There must be no dichotomy in the will. Therefore, until the true will has been discovered and properly formulated, magic tends to take one further from the goal. The true will and its realization is the main theme of Aleister Crowley's writings. Consult Magic in Theory and Practice, wherein the entire process is revealed and concealed. Tantra also recognizes in the male and female the two that may be resolved into the void through the process of love under will. In Chinese philosophy, the formula is expressed as 0 equals 2, or 0 equals the plus 1 plus the minus 1. Plus 1 is symbolized by the yang, or masculine principle. Minus 1 by the yin, or feminine principle. Their combination resolves manifestation into its original nothingness, expressed as Tao. This underlies the Tibetan formula: nothing manifests itself in any form. The plus 1, yang, is represented in consciousness by the subject. The minus 1, yin, by the object. There can be no subject without an object, and vice versa. The fusion of the two constitutes the world. The dissolution of the two constitutes the void, which is the nature of pure bliss. The aim of the ancient mysteries, Eastern or Western, was to equip man with the keys of self-realization. Whether ritualistically enacted or meditatively approached, whether magically apprehended or mystically experienced, the goal was one. Crowley reveals the modus operandi of both paths. The aim of mysticism is self-realization by absorption in the bliss of undifferentiated consciousness. The O of the Chinese equation. The aim of magic is the creation of an endless variety of worlds by infinite expressions of the self through love under will. The +1 plus the -1 of the equation. In this equation, love equals naught, will equals 2, the resolution to nothingness, which is also called the void, and it occurs in both cases. For the formula +1 plus -1 equals 0 is merely a particular way of saying 0 equals 2. This means that love and will are equivalent modes of the same substance. In the ancient Orphic texts, the primal void is often referred to as chaos. It is the pre-evolved substance out of which all things proceed. It is biologically expressed as the seed or matrix from whence all matter is derived. Ontologically considered, it is pure, undifferentiated consciousness. In alchemical terms, it is the first matter of the great work. The subject-object phenomenon, productive of the universe, is motivated and resolved by sex, or an analogous mechanism. The KTEIS is the cup of Babylon, symbolized as the scarlet harlot into whose grail flows the blood, or life force, of the saints. The saints are the eremites, or the hermits, i.e., the secret, unexpressed, or virgin male seed considered as a non-individualized substance, which equates with light, or solar energy. It is hermetic in the sense of being uncontaminated and devoted solely to the realization and fulfillment of its own inherent nature. It is the true will, whose vehicle of expression is the phallus. The Scarlet Woman rides upon the beast, her lord of light. She draws out the light by virtue of her supreme power, the Shakti, of inspiring creativity in a god, Shiva, whose energy is essential destructive, and a reversion to chaos. Combined with her, however, it is redeemed and molded into the creation of fresh forms of life, fresh event acts, fresh centers of possible experience in the field of infinite existence. The formula of the new aeon, which Crowley obtained in 1904, consists in just this passionate union of the opposites, of man and woman in nature, or the body, of subject and object in consciousness, the mind, of the self and not self as samity, spirit in the transcendental sexuality of woman and beast conjoined. The beast and the god meet in the woman. She serves as the vessel for an alchemical operation which transforms the dross of mundane experience into the gold of perfection via the spiritual essence of the beast. The central theme of the myth patterns of remote antiquity was the congress of woman and the beast. The formula of the incarnation of a god was that of the beast conjoined with the woman. This is the mystery at the heart of many classical legends. Leda and the swan, Parsifal and the bull, Mary and the dove. The god Zeus enjoyed Europa as a bull, Astri as an eagle, Dios as a speckled serpent. Jupiter seduced Arne in the form of a bull, and Theophane in the form of a ram, while Kronos as a horse covered Philaria and begat the centaur, Cheiron. Crowley wrote in The Paris Working from 1914, this is the great idea of magicians in all times, to obtain a messiah by some adaptation of the sexual process. In Assyria, they tried incest. Also in Egypt, the Egyptians tried brothers and sisters. The Assyrians, mothers and sons. The Phoenicians tried fathers and daughters. Greek and Syrians mostly did bestiality. This idea came from India. The Jews sought to do this by invocation methods, also by pedioactophemerum. The Mohammedans tried homosexuality. Medieval philosophers tried to produce the homunculi by making chemical experiments with semen. But the root of the idea is that any form of procreation other than the normal is likely to produce results of a magical character. Unquote. Strange cult survivals suggest that the formula of the beast was sometimes taken literally. Crowley notes that, quote, certain tribes in the Teria this day send their women annually into the jungle, and any half monkeys that result are worshipped in their temples, unquote. The reason being that their utterance were considered oracle. Western witchcraft Western witchcraft teems with accounts of elemental spirits in the form of animals who utter words of power and form channels of communication with occult entities. Some of these practices derive from infinitely remote and pre-sociological phases of evolution, from times when the part played by the male in procreation was quite unknown. In ancient Egypt, for instance, the child was supposed to formulate his father and make fertile his mother. The mother and child were the first anthropomorphic expressions of magical continuity, and they were worshipped as such. When the male was discovered to be the cause of generation, the mother and child were degraded, cast out and despised as the harlot with her bastard brood. The beast became debased, a thing abhorred, and the fatherless to this day are called bastards after that original fall from esteem. The cult of the mother was superseded by that of the father, and the solar religions were established on the basis of the male energy, which was then esteemed superior to that of the mother blood of the earlier lunar and stellar cults. And with the advance of knowledge concerning biological factors, astronomical observation also progressed. Time was no longer registered with reference to the stellar and lunar cycles, but evolved into the solar reckonings approximately as we have it today. But these are exoteric explanations of a constantly reoccurring formula involving sexual polarity of some sort, whether it is in the form of the beast, the child, or the man. The woman was the matrix, or vessel, wherein occurred the great transformation, resulting in physical immortality, and the continuation of consciousness upon the material plane, just as the sun appeared to reproduce itself annually and daily. It was originally supposed that a different sun arose with each fresh dawn, the old sun having been swallowed by the dragons of the water of space. Furthermore, in new patriarchal religions and sociologies, the resurrection was considered as the result of self-sacrifice and death. The male died in order to give life to the son who carried on his father's line, and, in his turn, earthed it in another matrix, and so on forever. The process was tinged with feelings of guilt, because the sacrifice and the death were undergone not out of compassion, but at the instigation of passion, which religion condemned. Whereas in the pagan cults, matter was glorified and man exalted in the sensuous experiences associated with his phallic deities. In the post-pagan cults, spirit was idealized at the expense of matter, and the consequent complexes of guilt and remorse resulted in doctrines of original sin, the fall, the vicarious atonement. The vicarious atonement. The pagan formula of health and pleasure, the cults of life and the cults of death. Both these cults have now been superseded. Matter and spirit are known to be identical. The formula now is of continuity of consciousness through life and death, and of continuity of consciousness during the operation, which was once supposed to be that entailed sacrifice and death. The book of the law says, "Be strong, O man, lust enjoy all things of sense and rapture. Fear not that any god shall deny thee for this." The secret of this magic lies in the formula of love under will. For most people, the sexual process comes in a death, a blotting out of consciousness at the supreme moment of release. The hiatus may be infinitely fleeting, but it is no less a break in continuity. Man does indeed die at the one moment when he should be more fully alive than at any other time. The intensive disciplines of yoga, no less than of traditional ritual magic, are designed to train the individual to achieve constant self-awareness, so that no experience, however powerful, may overwhelm the consciousness. History offers many examples of mystics so dazzled by the power or the splendor of their visions that they were utterly unable to express the nature of their experiences. Crowley evolved what is in effect a new language, specifically designed to facilitate the communication of the supra-rational experience in intelligible symbols. Whether the python of the invisible universe is opened by the magical use of drugs, alcohol, sex, or ecstatic meditation, leading into the thelema, the consequent experiences can be formulated and recorded with almost scientific precision, as proved by his magical diaries. The prime requisite for establishing contact with different orders of existence lies in the ability to act with love under will. The subsequent interpretation and recording of the event is also an integral part of the experience. The ancient tantric symbols and systems are replete with elaborate instructions for acquiring interior illumination. The ceremonial and Kabbalistic techniques of the West, though perhaps not quite so elaborate, were none less effective. But the processes were for the few and were not intended for massive attainment. Crowley has succeeded in abolishing the corner in things spiritual. He offers these spiritual treasures to all who are capable of appreciating them. In this respect, again, the Tantras are akin for all of the cults of antiquity. Tantra alone swept aside all distinctions of sex and caste. Crowley also aimed at bringing magic within the range of everyone. The disciplines and ordeals are no less intensive than those of old, but the techniques have been adapted to the exigencies of modern existence. Whereas the Western magical tradition required an enormous paraphernalia for its proper practice, the new magic depends solely upon the instruments at everyone's disposal, the psychophysical mechanism that is his from birth. Tantra specifies various centers or lotuses in the subtle counterpart of the human anatomy. Great reservoirs of magical energy are latent in each of them. They can be vivified if certain procedures are adopted. Although alcohol and drugs are sometimes employed to stimulate these centers, sex is an even more potent factor and preferable to other aids because it is natural and it is readily available. But great care must be taken. The Book of the Law observes, quote, "I am the secret serpent coiled about to spring. In my coiling there is joy. If I lift up my head, and I and my nuit are one. If I droop down my head and shoot forth venom, then is raptured of the earth, and I and the earth are one," unquote. But then he goes on to say, quote, "There is a great danger in me, for who doth not understand these ruins shall make a great miss," unquote. The secret serpent is the Kundalini Shakti, or central magical power in man. It may be stimulated by properly conducted rites requiring nothing more than the mysterious mechanisms of the human mind and body. Crowley concealed these processes in the symbols which composed his magical language. With a little patience and application, this language may become familiar to all. I have translated some of it, enough to make a comprehensible processes that are mentioned above in my book, Aleister Crowley and the Hidden God, now awaiting publication. The end.